So which of these mobile gimbals are perfect for 2022 or even going into 2023? Once again, not sponsored, these are my own products. The purpose of this video is to give you a general idea of the advantages and the limitations of each of these gimbals. And then if you want to see a comprehensive review, I've done reviews for both of these gimbals on my main channel. So if you want to check it out, feel free to do so after this video. First of all, cosmetics, exterior, ergonomics. I purchased this for 1300 RMB and this for 999, I believe. But at the time of recording, ZHIYUN had put out a sale for this gimbal. It is now the same price, 999. So that equates to just under 150 US dollars. And what do you get for that price? Well, for the DJI, you get this gimbal, a tripod, a magnetic clamp for your phone, and a USB cable. Likewise, ZHIYUN, this is the basic combo: tripod, the gimbal itself, and a USB cable. That's it. Do have a more travel pack combo. It's a little bit more expensive, I think 30 or 40 US dollars more, and you do get another magnetic light and a carry case. To be honest, I don't think you should be buying that. I think the basic gimbal purchase is probably worth bang for your buck. This is personal preference. I actually like the white and black theme. Call me superficial, yeah, maybe, but I'm being honest. Now, I think the white color does appeal to the younger generation. It's more trendy, and I think girls will like this a lot more because the color theme. Now, that being said, the hand, the ergonomics, both feels very similar. ZHIYUN being slightly little bit more thicker, okay, and the rubber does protrude out a little bit more, so it does feel more grippy, so to say. That being said, if you do have smaller hands, if you're a girl, this is probably a better touch for you. You can tell straight away, both of these right now is their minimal compact size, minus the tripod legs, right? All of these are detachable. This is just over 600 grams, this is just over 300, so nearly double in weight. It's the battery inside and the gimbal itself. While we're on the topic of battery, ZHIYUN lasts on paper 24 hours, whereas this is only 6 hours. I was able to deplete this whole battery through my test, and roughly about 5 hours or so. And as for ZHIYUN, now I wasn't able to test for the full 24 hours, so, you know, this is more than capable. But honestly speaking, I think from my experience with ZHIYUN's battery, I think maybe 1 or 2 days shouldn't be a problem. With DJI, definitely charge it every time you finish using because it only lasts up to 6 hours. If we move up in terms of functionality and the buttons and triggers, well, both are very similar. Now, these days, I think most gimbals are very similar. They do have a joystick at the front. We've got a little screen, whereas ZHIYUN does not. Now, speaking of the screen, this is, I think, where DJI is a little bit better because the screen, or the LED screen here, is a bit bigger and a bit brighter, whereas ZHIYUN is a very small little gap. So it's really hard to say during hot or sunny days when you're outside and shooting. So you have to rely on your camera to tell which mode you're in. So on the side, we can see there are both follow focus and follow focus. And with one push of a button, they become zoom controls. ZHIYUN feels a little bit better with a bit of resistance, so to say. So you're getting a much more precise control, but it is quite big. I don't feel like you probably don't need it this big, but this is, I think, maybe too small. It's very light. You're not going to get very precise controls if you're doing, you know, very minute zoom. Other than that, you both have the record button and the quick switch of modes, which is great. On the back, you do all have trigger buttons. One tap is to activate active track. Double tap is to recenter your camera. And on the ZHIYUN, triple tap is to do a 180 selfie rotation. On the DJI, you have to hold to get into lock mode. And by that, I mean your gimbal is locked in that position no matter which direction you turn it. Whereas on the ZHIYUN, you can switch straight into lock mode with just the mode button, so you don't have to hold on to the trigger while doing the shoot. That's something that really annoyed me when I was using DJI's, all of its gimbals, because you have to really kind of concentrate on holding this trigger while you're moving. So you are limited in moves. So for example, if you're shooting top down, you have to hold on to this button to lock focus or lock directions before you move. So it makes it a little bit difficult, you know what I mean? I wish they had a permanent lock function, but unfortunately there isn't one, and I think I couldn't find one in the application either. Mounting. ZHIYUN is very traditional in the way they mount. It's just a clamp that's permanently on here, so you just put your phone like this. And for the DJI, well, it's just a magnetic clamp. You put it in the middle of your phone like always and just snap it on. Personally, I do like the magnetic. It just kind of snaps on, so it makes it a lot easier, whereas this one, you have to do everything on the gimbal. Another thing that I like the DJI is the automatic turn on and off function. By that I mean I can just take it off, right, and then just close it like this without even looking and that automatically shuts itself off. Now to have it ready again, all I have to do is just turn it on like this, and we're good to go. So it's really quick to set up the DJI. Now in terms of clearance, I want to emphasize one point. So regardless of portrait mode or landscape mode, you do have a lot of clearance on the side, so you can put a microphone underneath. Whereas on the ZHIYUN, you can see here, look, restricted by this gimbal right on the side. Now I can adjust the gimbal a little bit to the left and then move this more to the right so it's more balanced and give that extra space. And this gimbal sometimes do get in the way of your shot, so you can't see the whole screen depending on your angle. And if you want to shoot portrait mode on the ZHIYUN, you have to manually turn it. It's not a big deal, but you do have to manually turn it, whereas on the DJI it's just a double tap like that. And see, this is what I mean. This gimbal does kind of get in the way of your screen real estate. You kind of, you can't see it, the whole screen, unless you tilt it like this. That being said, it's not game over for ZHIYUN, because there's something that the ZHIYUN can do, DJI cannot, and that's rotation and the amount of movement you can do. For example, I'm in lock mode right now, okay? And the ZHIYUN can go all the way down like this, and then come all the way up. 270 degrees of rotation. So if you're doing a lot of top shots and then you're doing a lot of low down shots going forward like this, especially in lock mode, it's really easy with the ZHIYUN. If you go sideways, you've got about 45 degrees. Any more, you're going to see your phone kind of tilt. If you're going to vortex mode, and basically you have infinite amount of rotations, so you can continually do vortex going forward or backwards. Okay, first to be in lock mode, so I have to hold the trigger. Now to go down, I can go down to about here, and that's it. That's it, guys. I can go any lower. Okay, any lower, this thing is going to follow me face downwards as well. So this axis doesn't tilt that much. Now, if I go left and right, however, I can go all the way down to about here. Any more, it's going to tilt, and the phone's going to switch itself off. And you can still shoot like this, right? But you have to hold on to this button. You can still shoot like this, top down, but you just have to rotate it differently and hold on to the trigger so you can put it into log mode and go forward and back. Now, if you want to come back up, you will have to come back up. But yeah, the phone's going to flip around, so keep that in mind. Tilting upwards and down, well, that's only 45 degrees, so that's not so good. One limitation with the DJI is that when you're shooting vortex mode, here you go, I just want to show you, okay? It's around 270 degrees and it stops. Okay, so it's not an infinite rotation like we have on the ZHIYUN. So if you're doing vortex push-ins and push-outs, keep in mind, you have to finish your movement or your shot before the phone stops turning. ZHIYUN does come with a selfie light. Turn it on just by holding the light button. I want to turn off my light just to show you how bright it is. Okay, so this is right in front of my face with about 5 centimeters and roughly 10 centimeters. If I'm as fully stretched out arm's length, right here, you can see right there, I'm not going to get much of a light. Okay, now before going outside, let's talk about the apps, because this is a big part for both of these gimbals, because a lot of the functions on here, for example, the zoom and the follow focus, it doesn't work without the app. Now, speaking of the zoom, the digital zoom, so this is not the actual optical zoom, this is the software-based digital zoom. On the DJI, you can do 8 times. On the ZHIYUN, you can only do 6 times. Nothing you can really use in terms of quality-wise, but, you know, it's something there just to let you know. The good thing is both of these phones, once you pair it up with the Bluetooth, it automatically recognizes it. So the moment you put the phone onto the gimbal, it's going to recognize the phone and it's going to switch to the app and turn it on. What's a little bit confusing is ZHIYUN has 2 apps, whereas DJI only has 1. ZHIYUN has a beginner's app, which is the basic ZHIYUN app, and then there's the more professional app which shoots everything in landscape, but you have much more control. You have histogram, waveform, you have LUT. I just wish that everything was in one app. Feature wise, both of the apps are very similar. I feel like the DJI app is a little bit better in design in terms of responsiveness. Feature wise, both are very similar. You can both shoot in video, photo, hyperlapse, time lapse, dolly zoom. Now, one of the draw cards with the app is active track. Now, I've tried extensively with both of these. Straight off the bat, I'm gonna say the active track is better on the DJI. It's better at tracking person, it's better at holding its target, whereas ZHIYUN, I feel like having a little bit more difficult time following its targets if you're moving too fast or if you're too close. Not that being said, if you're too close with the DJI, you're going to lose your target as well. I just feel like the ZHIYUN's active track is not as refined, especially if the scene is fairly complex, a lot of moving, a lot of similar characters or shapes and contrasting colors. It does confuse the active track a little bit. Now let's go outside and test the stability. Okay, so here we have a side-by-side comparison, both of which are shot in the main camera using the same iPhone 13 Pro with the lock stabilization turned on. There's no post, there's nothing done here. This is walking, and I did the same test again, running. You let me know in the comments which one you think it's better. Now, I also did the same test at 3x zoom, which is using the telephoto lens. This really helps to elaborate the jitters or the shifting camera movement, if any. Once again, walking and running. Now, one of the problems that I found with the DJI is, you can see the camera likes to shift to the right for some reason. I don't know if it's the wind. I don't think that should affect it. There was no trouble with the terrain while I was shooting, so that was a little bit unfortunate. It was a little bit of a surprise for me as well. Speaking of walking and talking heads, when you're vlogging, you're shooting yourself with active track. Now, I've done tests with both of these. They both fared really well. I also did the running test as well, so let's have a look. Focus on the background rather than myself. You are going to see some jitters either way, but overall it's not something, you're going to get a headache from watching the videos. It's not that much shake. And here are some other similar comparisons that I did outside with the same movements, same camera, just different gimbals. So guys, what do you think? Well, in my honest opinion, here are my thoughts. I like the looks of this, I like the battery life of this, I like the gimbal, the capability, the stability of this gimbal, and I like the ability to be able to do a lot more movements with this kind of setup. Now, what I don't like is the size, obviously. I don't like the little LED screen, which is really hard to see outside. I don't like having 2 apps. I just don't feel like, yeah, it's not compact enough if I'm doing an everyday shoot. Now, the DJI, I really like the ease of setup, the ease of use with one of these. It's small, it's compact. You turn it on, snap your phone onto the magnetic plate, and you're good to go. I like the active track on this. If you use that a lot, I think this is a great feature. I don't like the fact that there is no dedicated lock mode, and the battery life really isn't that great. So end of the day, it's really up to you. And if you have any questions, leave it in the comments and I'll answer as much as I can.